First, a few holy mackerel stories in today's news. We begin with a follow-up to Senator John Ensign's failed attempt to avoid the media at all costs. You know that Senator Ensign revealed back in June that he had had an affair with a campaign staffer who was married to a man named Doug Hampton. Doug Hampton worked in Senator Ensign's Senate office. Here was the failed media avoidance incident.
The New York Times sheds emails and other documentation that you had meetings with Allegiant Air and NV Energy and intervened on their behalf on specific items that they needed help with, and Doug Hampton represented them. Now, do you deny that that is the case?
All of these things will, come out. All of these things will come out at their due time. But there's no question. We complied with all of the ethics.
You had contact with him.
We had all
in the 1 year working for you, right?
We complied with all of the ethics rules. Remember, just like, senators who leave, they have a 2-year. It doesn't mean you don't talk to them. You can talk to anybody.
But not about clients and not about matters that they're lobbying for.
Well, I never met with Doug Hampton about any of that stuff.
I never met with Doug Hampton about any of that stuff. Question was, Senator Ensign, did you ever meet with Doug Hampton after you got him a lobbying job? No, I never met with Doug Hampton about any of that stuff. What you just saw was CNN's Dana Bash and her producer confronting John Ensign outside his office in Washington, D.C. yesterday. They're trying to ask the senator this: what was your involvement with Doug Hampton after you convinced companies to hire him as a lobbyist? It's an important question because former staffers are required by law to wait a year before lobbying their old bosses. And the answer that Ensign gave in this interview was zilch, nada, none. He said he had no contact with Doug Hampton on any lobbying matters.
Well, I never met with Doug Hampton about any of that stuff.
I never met with him about any of that lobbying stuff. Well, the New York Times today looked into the veracity of this statement, and they found an uh-oh. Quote, interviews and documents, however, show that Mr. Ensign had lunch in the Senate dining room in March with Mr. Hampton and executives from Allegiant Air to discuss aviation issues. That lunch took place on the same day that the airline executives, in a meeting arranged by Mr. Ensign, spoke with the Transportation Secretary, Ray LaHood, about a dispute with a foreign carrier and other issues. Allegiant Air being one of Mr. Hampton's clients on whose behalf he lobbied.
Are you considering resigning?
I am focused on doing my work, and I'm going to continue to focus on doing my work.
And so, too, will everyone else, Senator. We will all be focusing on your work, particularly the work we now think you did with your mistress's husband / former staffer / illegal lobbyist. And on the other side of the aisle, you have Democratic freshman Senator Al Franken of Minnesota, who is, full disclosure here, my former colleague at Air America Radio. Senator Franken just introduced and got past his very first amendment as a U.S. Senator, and I'm sure that is very exciting for him. And because he is a freshman senator, his first assignment, to be honest, was a bit of a gimme. It was an amendment so clearly necessary and rational, such a no-brainer that no one could ever possibly vote against this. Unless you're a Republican in the 111th Congress. Hoo boy, in this Congress, taxpayer-subsidized rape is apparently a controversial issue. Senator Franken's amendment would withhold government contracts from companies that prohibit employees alleging workplace sexual assault and discrimination from taking their cases to court.
The amendment will apply to many contractors that have already demonstrated their incompetence in efficiently carrying out defense contracts and have further demonstrated their unwillingness and their inability to protect women from sexual assault.
Some companies do not agree. They strongly prefer the privacy of a good old-fashioned cash settlement over the alternative, the very public due process of law. Well, the final vote on the Franken Amendment was 68-30. All nay votes on the amendment came from Republicans, meaning 3 out of 4 Republicans voted against the "if you are raped, you get your day in court" bill. Good luck running on that record in 2010. Sorry, no do-overs. And finally, a little good news, bad news story for you. The good news is that researchers have made significant progress toward developing a vaccine for cocaine addiction. In a new study published in the Archives of General Psychiatry, a vaccine was found to be moderately effective at helping the body produce antibodies that prevent cocaine from producing a chemical high. So that means the effects of cocaine are diminished. That's the good news. The bad news? The vaccine doesn't do a whole lot for the addiction part of the addiction. It doesn't in any way diminish a person's desire for the drug. So you don't get high anymore, but you still want the drug. In other words, the antidote requires its own antidote. I think that's what the pharmaceutical companies call a win-win. It'll probably be cheaper in Canada.